100 years after a British mountaineer disappeared on an expedition to Mount Everest, climbers appear to have found his remains.
High on Everest, where storms outrun decisions and daylight disappears without warning, the mountain keeps the memories of those who never returned. Their frozen stories reveal more about the peak than any triumphant summit. Today, we begin our descent into its darkest history and count down the 6 harrowing final journeys that still haunt these slopes. Number 6. Green Boots, Tsewang Paljor. At 8,500 meters, the world stops behaving like the one we recognize. Sound dulls, colors drain, thought itself slows, as if the mountain is quietly rewriting the rules of being human. And just below the summit ridge, a pair of bright green plastic boots has become Everest's most unintentional landmark, a silent marker of a climber who never made it home. Tsewang Paljor was young, tough, and part of an elite Indo-Tibetan border police team attempting the summit during a ferocious 1996 storm. The winds that struck his group weren't ordinary mountain gusts. They were hurricane-force blasts measured later at more than 160 kilometers per hour. The storm hit so violently it wiped out all radio communication, meaning rescue instructions from lower camps never reached them. That breakdown, invisible to climbers in the moment, sealed their fate long before anyone realized the danger. Paljor and 2 teammates pressed upward into the storm's teeth, hoping to tag the summit before retreating. Instead, they vanished into whiteout conditions so severe that even a few meters of distance became an impossible gap to close. Hours later, another team stumbled upon the cave where Paljor would spend his final moments. Sitting upright, arms around his knees, as if trying to hold on to warmth the mountain had already taken. For decades, climbers passed the spot without fully knowing his name, only the boots. Yet the story behind them reveals something deeper. On Everest, survival is not just about strength or experience. Sometimes it's about whether the wind allows your last message to get through. Number 5. David Sharp. David Sharp's story is one of Everest's most painful reminders that determination can turn deadly when isolation meets thin air. He was no thrill-seeker chasing fame. Sharp was a meticulous, quiet engineer who climbed for the purity of the challenge. But Everest is a place where even disciplined ambition can unravel in minutes. In 2006, Sharp attempted a solo ascent with minimal support, a choice that left him vulnerable long before he reached the death zone. He carried limited oxygen, planning to move fast and light. Yet the mountain's upper slopes rarely reward such precision. By the time he reached the limestone alcove, known as Green Boots Cave, his body had already begun losing its battle against cold, fatigue, and altitude. Later scientific analysis of that exact spot revealed an overlooked and devastating truth. The cave functions as a cold trap, where temperatures can plunge to 40 parts C even when outside air is significantly warmer. The rock funnels cold air downward and prevents heat from escaping, creating a microclimate so lethal that survival time can drop below an hour. Sharp never knew he had stopped in one of the deadliest pockets on the entire route. More than 40 climbers passed him, some believing he was already gone, others too depleted to intervene. When Meka Lugao finally knelt beside him, Sharp's face had turned black from frostbite, an unmistakable sign of organ shutdown. Even medicine and oxygen offered by earlier climbers couldn't reverse what the cold trap had started. His death ignited a global debate. On a mountain where every breath is borrowed, what duty do climbers owe one another? Sharp's final hours became the tragic center of that question. Number 4. Francis Arsentiev. Francis Arsentiev's climb was meant to be a milestone in mountaineering history, a testament to quiet determination rather than bravado. Known for her calm resolve, she had already skied down Elbrus and earned deep respect among climbers. But in 1998, she and her husband Sergei set out to achieve something far more dangerous, becoming the first American woman to summit Everest without supplemental oxygen. Their ascent was slow, punishing, and repeatedly disrupted by equipment failures, darkness, and exhaustion. Days spent above 8,000 meters, far longer than the human body can safely endure, turned their climb into a race against physiology itself. By the time Francis neared the summit ridge, she was critically depleted, her body starving for oxygen it could no longer absorb. When climbers Ian Woodall and Kathy O'Dowd discovered her the next morning, she was half-conscious, frostbitten, and stripped down to her thermal layer. Her scattered clothing was a terrifying sign of paradoxical undressing, a final stage hypothermia response where victims feel impossibly hot moments before collapse. Woodall held her, trying to warm limbs that no longer bent, but at that altitude the world shrinks to binary choices: save one person or lose three. A later atmospheric reconstruction revealed a chilling detail of the night she became stranded. The jet stream edge dipped directly over the northeast ridge, creating violent microbursts of 190+ km/h winds, an extremely rare event that can strike without visible warning. Climbers caught beneath it stood almost no chance of survival. Sergei vanished while searching for her. Frances died waiting for help that could never reach her. Their tragedy remains Everest's most haunting portrait of love, loyalty, and the brutal arithmetic of the death zone. Number 3. Scott Fisher. Scott Fisher was the kind of climber people believed couldn't die on a mountain. Charismatic, strong, and famously resilient, he had earned the nickname The Machine for his ability to push through exhaustion long after others quit. In 1996, he led a commercial expedition up Everest, one that would become part of the mountain's deadliest storm. From the start, Fisher was stretched thin. He ferried sick climbers down the route himself, repeatedly ascending and descending between high camps. Those extra efforts, noble as they were, drained the reserves he needed for the summit push. By the time he neared 8,000 meters, he was moving slower, sounding disoriented, and showing the unmistakable symptoms of altitude sickness. Yet Fisher pressed upward, refusing supplemental oxygen for most of the climb. Later medical research suggests he was likely experiencing high-altitude cerebral edema, HACE, in the hours before the storm. This rare but catastrophic condition can cause sudden bursts of strength, followed by a steep crash in coordination and consciousness. Eyewitness accounts support this. Climbers recalled Fisher pushing hard toward the summit with eerie determination, then rapidly deteriorating once the blizzard hit. As hurricane-force winds engulfed the mountain, Fisher ordered his team to descend without him, a decision rooted in deep responsibility. Alone near the south summit, he fought for hours against cold, disorientation, and failing oxygen flow. Guides who attempted to reach him were forced back by the storm's brutality. When they returned the next day, Fisher had succumbed. His body remains on the mountain, a stark testament to a truth Everest never hides. Even legends can break in the death zone. Fisher wasn't defeated by one mistake, but by a chain of small sacrifices made for others, a cost the mountain collected in full. Number 2. Rob Hall. Rob Hall was the guide everyone trusted, the steady hand on the rope, the calm voice in the storm, the man whose judgment had carried dozens safely to the summit. By 1996, he was a legend, not because he chased records, but because he brought ordinary climbers to extraordinary heights. That reputation drew clients from around the world and placed unbearable weight on his decisions the year Everest unleashed one of its deadliest tempests. Hall's climb began smoothly, but, trouble emerged just below the summit. Client Doug Hansen, exhausted and oxygen-starved, struggled to continue. Hall should have turned him around. Instead, driven by loyalty and the fear of crushing Hansen's dream for a second year in a row, he stayed with him, long after the safe turnaround time had passed. Those lost hours trapped them both in the path of the storm. As winds neared 240 kilometers per hour and visibility collapsed to nearly zero, Hansen could no longer move. Hall refused to abandon him. Other guides tried reaching the pair, but the blizzard was too violent. By nightfall, Hall was stranded alone high on the south summit, frostbitten, oxygen failing, and running out of time. Yet, in those final hours, he achieved something remarkable. Using an early portable satellite system, he made what engineers later confirmed as the highest altitude two-way satellite voice call ever recorded at the time, speaking to his pregnant wife from the death zone. His final words, steady even as his body failed, became one of mountaineering's most heartbreaking farewells. "Sleep well, my love. Please don't worry too much." Hall died where he waited for help, unwilling to leave a client behind. His story endures as Everest worse. It lists his clearest lesson. Heroism on this mountain is rarely triumphant. Often, it is tragic. Number 1. George Mallory. Long before Everest became a guided pilgrimage, it was an unclimbed myth, a white giant that defeated every attempt to measure, map, or conquer it. And no name is more entwined with that early era than George Mallory, the man who famously answered, "Because it's there," when asked why he wanted to climb the world's highest peak. For Mallory, Everest wasn't a trophy, it was a calling. In 1924, he and 22-year-old Andrew Irvine began their summit bid in brutally primitive conditions. Cotton and wool clothing, rudimentary oxygen sets, and ice axes that would snap under loads modern tools withstand easily. Yet they moved with astonishing efficiency. On June 8th, fellow climbers spotted the pair climbing strong just 244 meters below the summit, higher than anyone in history had ever stood. Then the clouds swallowed them whole. They were never seen alive again. For decades, their disappearance shaped Everest's greatest mystery. Had they reached the top nearly 30 years before Hillary and Norgay? Clues drifted in. An ice axe found in 1933, a reported body sighting in 1975, but nothing conclusive. The breakthrough came in 1999, when a search team discovered Mallory's remarkably preserved remains beneath a slab of rock. His injuries suggested a catastrophic fall, yet one seemingly small detail ignited a new wave of speculation. Mallory's snow goggles were not on his face, they were in his pocket. To mountaineers, that single clue is seismic. Climbers descending at dusk often remove their goggles as light fades. If Mallory was indeed descending when he fell, then the possibility remains, tantalizing, unproven, but alive, that he and Irvine may have touched the summit long before anyone believed possible. Mystery persists where oxygen vanishes. And on Everest, no story deepens that mystery more than Mallory's final climb. If these stories gripped you, hit like, subscribe for more deep dive documentaries, and tell us which moment stood out most in the comments. Your support helps us uncover the world's most haunting expeditions and bring their untold histories to light.